Welcome to Troo Talk. Today we'll be discussing the power of battery storage and how battery storage is revolutionising the manufacturing sector. I'm your host, Hannah. You might have noticed that we're not actually in our normal content studio. We're in the MSP site, which brings me on to introducing my guest, Simon Patterson, founder of MSP. Welcome, Simon.
Thank you.
So, Simon, could you give our viewers an explanation of what battery storage is and how it works?
So battery storage is in essence the storage of energy for use later. And it's as simple as that. The oldest batteries in the world are probably hydro. That's what it was. That energy's up at the top of a lake and it comes down. Nowadays we can do it with chemical storage, and that nowadays predominantly we're doing it with lithium ion. Lithium ion has the benefits of being very efficient in the amount of energy it can take in, and also very efficient in the energy it gives out, which gives it a round trip. So your losses are very small. And so I got into the lithium game a long time ago when we were storing energy for the super yacht world. We were building electric super yacht tenders. And then that transferred one day when we were in a bar in Monaco and the owner said, "I don't understand why your boat is lighter than my generator." And I thought, "Ooh, that's an idea." So we built lithium battery packs for the super yacht industry, and we built DC generators, and that made them very small. And that gave the rich and famous a silent night's sleep. And so that the industry grew. At the time, the batteries were terribly expensive, £2,500 a kilowatt hour, and today they are about $125, in large volume. But where we at MSP, we really focus in on the commercial and industrial space, because we understand that there's a huge pressure on energy pricing, but equally businesses really need to know what their energy is going to be the cost of their energy long term, and the battery really can help. So our company's MSP Technologies, which is branded as multi-source power. And multi-source power, really quite obvious. We're saying we can, by using a battery, absorb multiple sources of power, whether that be the grid, and you might have a day-night rate with a large differential. So you might want to buy that energy at 4 o'clock in the morning so you can use it in the daytime and avoid your peak times. Or you might want to put solar on the roof. And of course, there will be sunny days when you're making far too much solar, and the battery can absorb that and you can use it later. You might have a wind turbine. You might have a fuel cell. You might have a diesel generator. There are lots of sites where there isn't a grid. We've just done a lovely hotel, which is now completely off grid. But what we do is we make the diesel generator, which is a HVO generator, actually, so clean fuel, and that runs as if it's on the motorway. So there's a little bit of energy going to the hotel. The rest of the energy is going to the battery.
Wow.
The generator only runs for about an hour, and then it shuts down. And then the battery powers the hotel for the rest of the day. And that process repeats. And so that particular hotel has got completely on top of its energy now. And that hybrid system for them is cheaper than being on the grid.
Wow.
So that's really, it was amazing for us to see that. But of course, there has been a lot of volatility in the energy markets of late. And that is starting to stabilize. Mm-hmm. But, one of the key drivers to the battery is that control of your own power. I think that's probably the beating heart of it.
Yeah.
It gives you as a business the control over your energy needs, mm-hmm. and predominantly when you're going to use that energy. There are some wonderful tariffs out there. I'm sure Troo knows all about them, where if you've got a battery, your suppliers can kind of choose when they're going to put the energy into the battery. Mm-hmm. That becomes seamless for you. You as the end user, you don't really know. You just know that the energy that you're using is a lot less expensive than it would be if you turned on, all your machines at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 5 o'clock in the afternoon at peak time.
Yeah.
And then there's a raft of other options for the commercial people who've got suitable grid connections. There's revenue to be generated on top of just being able to take in solar, take in wind, take in fuel cells, or whatever that energy resource is. actually the batteries can support. So you might be thinking about a UPS system for your factory or for your key machines, whereas the battery actually is quite capable of being a building-wide UPS. And that can be quite advantageous, But by being a UPS, you could also earn some money by perhaps getting involved with the demand-side response. So demand-side response is basically when you will promise, when the grid doesn't want you to use energy, that you won't use energy, of course. So the battery will provide the energy to the factory, you don't take any from the grid, and then you get a nice check.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really coincides with a lot of businesses' needs, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So could you tell us why battery storage is relevant to the manufacturing sector?
Well, I think the manufacturing sector, in a relatively straightforward way, is energy intensive, can be, has commercial rooftop, and commercial rooftop is ideal for solar. And then some manufacturing businesses are 24 hours, some aren't. So, but if you were a 12-hour business or a standard 8-hour day business, you have that night time to buy some cheap energy, to put it in the battery, to use again the next day. Or perhaps you're a manufacturing business that's found the perfect site, but you've looked at the grid connection and it's only 0.5 megawatt.
Yeah.
And you really needed a megawatt because you've got some big machines that you need to start up for a few hours a day. But the building was fantastic. The grid connection was too small. Yeah. You spoke to the DNO and they're going to charge you a fortune to upgrade the grid, and then you're going to pay a bill. Whereas the battery actually, once your power levels get towards 0.5 megawatt, the battery will push up the rest, allowing you to upgrade that machine or defer upgrading your grid. And that's a real win, because that battery is an asset.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a clean asset. You get all your tax credits on it, pay for itself in X number of years, and again, it's mobile. So unlike your grid connection that you've upgraded, you can pick up your battery should you need to relocate and take it with you.
What types of battery storage solutions are there for businesses?
Okay, so really what we're talking about is power and hours. So power, is the amount of AC power that your facility needs. So that manufacturer might need 250 kilowatts of AC power. That's if they had all the machines on, that's what they'd need. On top of that, you've then got your hours. So how many hours do you need this energy for? So that's how we would size the battery. So we do quite a careful study. So we'd look at your half-hourly data. We'd look at your generation, we'd look at your day-night rate and the differential, or we'd look at what you could get as a day-night rate and the differential. And then we'd be able to overlay your usage with your generation, your day-night rate, and we'd be able to analyze the size of the battery that would be ideal for each and every facility. And we do it on a case-by-case basis, because it isn't a case that one size fits all. But I will say is that the market is moving, and we are now building batteries that are 4, 5, 6 hours. Wow. Everybody thinks the other thing to say is everybody thinks they need 250 kilowatts or 0.5 megawatt or a megawatt's worth of power or 2 megawatts worth of power. But they probably do, but they only need it, for that one day a year when everything's on.
Yeah.
We kind of refer to it as the Christmas Day scenario. It's the worst solar day of the year, and you've got all the cookers on and everything's on, and that's the one day you need it. But in reality, there's peaks and troughs in your energy usage. So that gives you an opportunity to absorb that excess PV, absorb that excess diesel power if it was that, and absorb that excess grid power. And that we do it in a huge range of sizes. So the smallest systems we do start at sort of 25 kilowatts. That might be a small industrial unit, right up to 25, 50 megawatts. Wow. Should we want should you want to? But the nice thing about the way we do it, and I think you can see it back here, is we've made it very modular. So it's kind of we sort of say it's Lego for storage.
Oh, nice.
So this is a 1 megawatt block there. If you wanted 5 megawatt hours, you have 5 of those. If you wanted 10, you have 10. Yeah. It's just pretty obvious. And then there's the smaller side, the 250s and the 500s, and then the little ones when we start at 25, it goes up to about 150.
Yeah.
And what we've found is that footprint really matters because industrial space has a cost, you know, and the fact that these systems are super safe.
Yeah.
So we go the extra yard in terms of fire safety and underwriting, et cetera, which gives us, you know, a relatively unique position in the market because we, as I was saying, I have that marine heritage. So all of these are built in fireproof composites as opposed to your standard metal containers, which is, you know, we believe it's better because, you know, we know what it's like living in the UK.
Yeah.
Everything rusts, whereas composite housings, of course, don't, and they're insulative. And so we've kind of built a little cold store for the batteries that keeps them just at the right temperature and gets the best performance from them.
Wow, that's great. They're also like so compact as well, so it doesn't take up too much space in your business.
I mean, you know, a megawatt hour battery is smaller than a car parking space.
Wow.
So, and importantly, you know, it's a very mobile asset. You know, you can pick it up with a forklift truck, a big one, or with a HIAB, you know, and so positioning it and getting it on site is quite straightforward. We've done batteries which are very mobile. We've done batteries that have gone around the world powering an off-road electric car race in multiple countries, in Saudi and Chile and Senegal, all over the place. I mean, it was great fun. And now we're about to build some batteries which are going off to power a very interesting factory for most of the year. And then once a year, they're going to go off and power a very, very large festival.
Wow. No pressure.
There's no pressure on that one.
Yeah. That's great though, because that demonstrates how reliable that these batteries
I think
are.
that's really true. You know, the industry has matured. You know, we're not, these are very much products, not projects now. You know, we build a lot of these, everything's consistent, everything's the same. It allows us to build this very consistent product, which will have very consistent performance. And that's the key driver because, you know, we're looking at your energy use and the requirements for the battery. The battery's got to pay for itself, you know? And so without it being, you know, super reliable and very high performing and very efficient, you know, that's going to push that out. But yeah, the fact that we can take a battery to, you know, televised major events and, you know, and it will power it for several days is testament to what we're doing. It's good.
I'll watch out for it on the telly. So, are there any case studies or success stories that you could share with us?
In terms of manufacturing, yeah. So we've got you know a facility, which is I suppose it's manufacturing, but well, it's agricultural stroke manufacturing. They make eggs.
Oh wow!
And of course, you know this particular farmer needs to hit his environmental credentials, you know, to prove he's as clean and green as possible. And he's in a position. He's got a great big roof. He's, you know, he doesn't have the biggest grid connection in the world. So in this particular instance, we've got the battery, and that is absorbing directly. I mean, it's called DC coupling. So we're able to take the PV straight off the roof. It goes to the battery, and it flows over the battery and out to the site's loads. And anything that's not gone out to load is absorbed in the battery, which pretty much means that this particular facility will be off grid for about 85% of the year.
Oh, okay.
And DC coupling, by the way, it's becoming a real buzzword, because you might have a facility, you've got a nice big roof, you've gone to the grid to get your, I don't know, couple of 100 kilowatts on your roof, and the DNO has said no, because the grid in your area is constrained. It's a bit of a problem, and that's a problem for you as a business, because you want to do the solar, you know it's going to pay for itself, but you can't do it because the DNO won't let you do it because of the grid. So by DC coupling it direct to the battery, you remove that solar away from the eyes of the grid, because actually it's only the battery that the grid will look at. And because the battery is a controllable asset, then then the DNOs will look at the battery much more favourably, and you can apply for a G100 application, so it will never export. And you as a business don't really want to export, because why would you sell something at 14 pence that you need to buy back later at 28?
Yeah, exactly. What are the common challenges that manufacturers face when considering battery storage?
There's a good amount of choice in the market now, but there isn't a huge. There's quite a lot of home energy storage, or the smaller end, 5, 10, 15 kilowatt systems. There's a lot of that around, of varying quality. And then, of course, the ones that hit the news are the big sites, the 50 megawatts, the 100 megawatt sites. But they're a different battery. They are aimed at supporting the grid, performing grid balancing services or responding to frequency changes, and they're revenue generating, and the grid pays them to do that. So between these home energy storage systems and these great big whopping grid support batteries, there isn't an awful lot in this middle ground, which is the sort of commercial space where you might be 250 kilowatt up to, say, 5, 10 meg. What you're looking for is long performance, so that an asset that's going to perform for a really long time. So we do a lot of work in analysing how the battery is going to be run, and then we'll create a battery that's big enough to hit a 10 or 15 or 20-year warranty. So under warranty that your asset's going to perform for this long duration. Yeah. Then on top of that, you've got to size your inverters and your efficiency. And so the key drivers really are, everybody wants a cost point, and that there's no getting away from that. The cost point's really, really important, and we know that we're incredibly competitive. But really, that extended warranty, so your product's going to work for a very long time, is footprint's important. Safety circuitry is important. Everyone's read about lithium fires. Are they dangerous, et cetera, et cetera. The answer is there is a risk, and there is a risk to everything. I mean, there's a risk to having 5,000 litres of diesel on site, but MSP goes the extra mile. So we have an array of temperature sensors. We have ion tamer off-gas detection systems. We have machine learning algorithms that protect it. We have the box itself will seal itself shut if there was in the event of fire, and that's allowed us to put our batteries in places, quite unique places, and big pharmaceutical sites. There was talk about it going down to a cellar underneath an enormous house in London, and we were able to get it insured to do that because there is a value to them. We're allowed to. We have the ability to add those extra layers of safety. Yeah. Whereas the home energy market, much more cost sensitive, and they don't have those layers of safety that we would put in. Yeah, yeah. Is there anything that you do, especially here on site, that manages those risks? Yeah. So I mean, one of the key drivers for us is there's a risk to any energy asset. We have a multi-tiered approach to thermal runaway or lithium safety, and so we in essence we start with a digital system, which is recording the information on every cell, a machine learning algorithm in terms of temperature sensors. We have off-gas detection systems, and then we have the BMS and the monitoring systems and the air conditioning systems that are all monitoring and making sure that everything's doing what it should do. However, digital systems aren't perfect, so every single digital system we have has a mechanical backup. And one of the key drivers for us is about containment. So in this megawatt up there, we've got 170 modules. Inside each module, there's 16 cells, and the event will be caused by one cell. Wow. And so that cell, the important thing here is that cell is called thermal runaway. So the one cell has an issue, and that could propagate to the cell next door. Okay. And then, of course, now you've got two cells on fire, and that will go to the third and the fourth, and it can spread. So that's propagation. So the key driver for us is to start with the best possible quality cells and modules. So there is a test that can be done called UL9540A, and I would strongly recommend that nobody ever buys a battery that doesn't have UL9540A. Because
Okay.
UL9540A is a test that proves that should one cell in this module catch fire, the one next door doesn't.
Okay.
And so you start with that point, and then you add the secondary systems, and our predominant system is O2 suppression. So should we have a trigger point from the thermal arrays, from the thermal sensors, or the off-gas detection system, then we purge all the O2 from the housing. So the housings are IP64, so we purge the O2, and if you can get the O2 below or around 4% or better, or below, then you reduce the likelihood of propagation tenfold.
Okay.
And that's quite important because we've started with a module, a cell, that has UL9540A, so we know it doesn't propagate, but there's still a possibility, you know?
Yeah.
But if you can get rid of the oxygen, then we've reduced your known likelihood of propagation, we've reduced it by a further tenfold.
Yeah.
So we believe that we really are right up there in terms of safety, making our systems insurable, underwritable, and you know, to be put in you know, in relatively interesting and high value places.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've done a lot of work. I've been in the lithium game a long time, so we know what we're doing, and we so I think that safety element we're very, very capable of addressing.
Yeah. How does battery storage affect a manufacturer's sustainability efforts?
Okay, so I mean, if we get into the world of the ESG element of the world, so I mean, a bit like I was saying about the chicken farmer, you know, the cleaner his energy is, the cleaner his business is, you know, and that's simply that. So by being able to utilize as many renewables as you can, you know, you are improving those numbers markedly, you know, but you've got to be able to do them in an economic way, you know, so you will make significant inroads into answering most of your ESG numbers by the utilization of energy storage. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of embedded carbon in that battery, but it will offset itself over X number of years, normally 3 or 4.
Okay.
But there's embedded carbon in everything.
Yeah. So what are the potential economic benefits for manufacturers?
It's a strange one. I think my team and I have been discussing this lately. So there is the standard, very formulaic ROI. You know, it cost me X, I've stored this much excess PV, I've been able to buy this much at night, which has offset my day. You know, I've earned a little bit of money in demand side response. I've perhaps had a big enough connection to earn some more revenue in dynamic containment. And that's a very simple calculation, which will give the FD, you know, that's the ROI. I'm going to lay out this cash now, and it's going to break even in year 3 or 4, or whatever that might be.
Yeah.
I think some of the conversations we've been having of late have transitioned a little bit away from ROI and more to a surety of the cost of my energy going forward. And I think that gives businesses, especially manufacturing businesses, confidence that next year their energy bill is going to be very consistent to this year's energy bill. And they've done it because predominantly their energy is being self-generated, you know, PV or wind, and then the battery. And that gives them consistency, which allows people to plan. And it's really important because if you're a relatively high energy user and your energy costs triple, which they have done over the last 18 months, and it's settled down a bit now. But having that assurity that my energy costs are going to be relatively flatlined, across a long period of time, gives you a very warm fuzzy feeling, I suppose, as a manufacturer. But it gives you a surety of what it's going to cost to produce your product going forward.
Yeah. How long would you say roughly it would take a business to see a return on their investment?
So in terms of your ESG numbers, etc., almost straight away. There are a multitude of factors. We've had sites that have paid for themselves in under 18 months. That battery is ROI clear, done, happy days. Other sites, it could be pushing out to 3 to 4 sometimes 5. Although I will be honest with you, if it's longer than 5, the FDs rarely go for it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. What are the emerging trends and innovations within the battery storage industry?
Emerging trends really are actually the size of the battery. So batteries were relatively small. Now they're getting bigger in terms of the number of hours against power. People have seen the value, got a little bit sensitive about the capex and perhaps bought a battery that was maybe only 1 or 2 times larger than their AC requirements. Now they're seeing these benefits and they're seeing them in multiple revenue streams. And so those batteries are getting much larger. So now we're seeing batteries at 4, 5. I think I've got a quotation in play for a 10-hour battery.
Wow.
And that really will push that facility off grid, up way above 85% of the time. Again, that DC coupled element, that is a very emerging trend. It's super hot at the moment. Really, really, really fantastic because it's allowing those manufacturing or those businesses to look at the size of their roof and say, I can generate this, right? And I'm not limited by my grid connection. Well, I can generate this, and if I do this and I cover all of my roof, then I can get complete control over my power.
That's brilliant.
And it is. It is. Again, we're working with fuel cells now. We work with wind turbines. DC coupled solar, AC coupled solar. Rotating machines, hybridization on building sites. The battery sort of becomes the beating heart of all of this, allowing those facility owners, freedom. I think that's a key driver. It's freedom to do what you want in terms of your generation. Mm-hmm. I think I've got a quite nice case study for you, actually. There's a site in Northern Ireland, which we've just energized. And they had really, really strong goals to get control of their power. So they wanted to put up a 1 megawatt wind turbine. They wanted to put up 1.5 meg of solar on the roof, but the grid couldn't take it. The grid said no.
Oh, okay.
So one of the emerging trends is the concept of a grid-connected microgrid.
Right.
So this particular facility had a 500 kilowatt grid connection. They wanted their 1 megawatt turbine. They wanted their 1.5 meg of solar, but they couldn't have it. So what we created for them, they came to see us and we created a grid-connected inverter on this side that's on the 500. And then we created a grid-forming inverter on the other side. So it's quite a large one. So we created a microgrid, and that's allowed, and the battery is basically the isolation between the grid and the facility. Okay. But that's really cool because, yes, I can still import some energy from the grid, but I can export some energy to the grid. But my private network, my microgrid, now is mine to do what I want. Yeah. So they now have their megawatt wind turbine, and they now have their 1.5 meg of solar, and they still have their grid connection. And the nice thing about that one, actually, because that was being funded, there's always that use case that says, well, what if the facility isn't using the power? Mm-hmm. And I've paid for, I've funded the wind turbine and the solar. Well, because they had the grid connection, that energy still could be exported. So it made the project completely financeable. Mm-hmm. It was quite an exciting project, and we've got many of those coming up, actually.
Really? Oh, that's so exciting.
So, oddly, we're doing them at sort of even at industrial park level. Yeah. So rather than it being the individual units, we're doing it at the site-wide level.
Wow.
It's giving the freedom to get that solar on the roof, to put up that wind turbine, get the benefit of the grid, but take all of that pressure away from the grid. And the grid's scratching its head, by the way, at the moment, going, we like this, we think, we don't. But actually, they're saying, well, actually, we do like that because we've got this resource, we're not having to control it, it's not impacting our grid, but the facilities, these manufacturing facilities, storage facilities, whatever they might be, are getting the benefit of self-consumption, self-generation. Yeah. And it's great. The technology's there. We can make it happen.
Yeah, it's fantastic. How can manufacturers stay up to date with what's happening in the battery storage industry?
So the battery storage industry is still, relatively small, relatively niche. There are not many manufacturers in the UK. I think there really aren't. There's a lot of Chinese product out there, of varying quality. Staying up to date, there are some really good sites, energy storage news. It's quite buzzword at the moment, energy storage, and the government's just done a big report about how it's going to support energy storage going forward and pushing it out there. It's an emerging industry, and right now, and it's perfect timing for us to do this podcast, really, because the interest from the commercial C&I space right now has never been greater, and everybody's saying, so tell me how. What can it do for me?
Yeah.
I've just seen them install one down the road, right? And then so we explain and we do a study for them, and we can make it work. But yeah, there's lots on the web. There's lots on our website. There's Troo probably knows quite a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, or just pick up the phone. We're more than happy to explain the benefits of storage.
Now you're going to be inundated with phone
Yes.
calls. This is segment 6, which is actually our final segment, unfortunately, because I feel like we're having a great conversation. What advice would you give to manufacturers considering battery storage solutions?
You talk to a reputable supplier. That's the key driver. Make sure those warranties are meaningful. Make sure that the safety systems are correct. Make sure your round trip efficiencies are there. Make sure the installation's done properly. And actually, if you've done all of the above, then you will have the benefits of that storage system working on your facility for 10 to 20 years.
What would you advise for someone who was looking for battery storage and they want to know which companies are reputable? How would they know that they are reputable? Would that be online or?
I think there's online. You'd be looking for deployments, especially UK and European deployments.
Yeah.
There's no getting away from it. This is a very large segment of this industry is Chinese. But yeah, if you're looking for the case studies that are here and working in the UK, and if that company, if they can't give you, the name and the phone number of the last site that they installed, then there's probably something wrong.
Okay. So do you have any tips for a smooth transition into integrating battery storage?
Yeah, it's a journey, and there's, we as a business try to help business owners on that journey, because it isn't as simple as opening a catalogue and saying I'll have one of those.
Yeah.
It isn't. You've got to understand the use profile. You've got to understand the energy needs, what their energy contract looks like, what the roof is like, what the wind turbine might be like. All of those, it's that multi-source power element again. But yeah, if you find someone like ourselves who can do that study for you, we can do all the analysis, present, create a profile for, X number of years. And that's very presentable, you can, you as the facilities manager might be thinking about this, but you need that information to be able to present it to the board, to put it in front of the FD and all the other stakeholders, and show its value.
Yeah. How can manufacturers get started with the implementation? Do you have an end-to-end process that you can offer? Yeah,
I think one of the new areas for us are the ability to start to fund the batteries. And so we could look at the ability of putting the battery in free of charge. And then you'd be paying for the kilowatt hours that you use. Equally, you might want to look at a process of how and what. Today we get a lot of people that come to see us when they've had a problem. They wanted to do the solar, they wanted to do the wind, but they couldn't.
Yeah.
And then they come to find someone like us that might be able to give them a more novel solution around, to get around those issues. But yeah, from our point of view, it's just a case of pick up the phone or send him an email and we can get the ball running.
Amazing. Thank you for tuning in to Troo Talk. We hope our discussion helped you gain a better understanding of battery storage within the manufacturing sector. And thank you very much for Simon for coming on and MSP for being part of this podcast.
My
and
pleasure.
Thank you so much to our wonderful listeners who are tuning in today. So if you want to see any more episodes, then you can check out our profile, and you can also give us a little subscribe and hit that bell so you can stay updated on any of our upcoming episodes. And if you want to get in touch or you have any more questions about battery storage, then feel free to contact us via the link in the description.